Hi, General. Thanks for joining us. This is Christian Lowe with military.com. I'm not sure if it's on your radar yet, but it certainly will be in the coming days. The impending release of about 24 graphic photos of the treatment of detainees at Abu Ghraib and other military detention facilities. And I'm wondering if you expect a backlash from the Iraqi people in your area of operation with the release of those photos, and whether or not you're preparing in any way to deal with a violent backlash.
We are aware they're going to be released. My own professional judgment is right now there will be some backlash. I don't think it'll be catastrophic. I don't believe that's going to result in significant violence. I do believe that the pictures resonate in Iraq and the rest of the Muslim world, and it does not help us with our public image. But our image is much better today than it was when the photos were first released. And we've had an opportunity now for at least the people in Iraq to see who we are as people and realize that that's an aberration. But there's still a pretty significant feeling of distrust, certainly, and loathing of Americans for those photographs. And I anticipate the majority of the backlash is going to be voiced in terms of opinion articles, maybe some mild marches, some protests. I do not expect a major outbreak in violence, although we're prepared to handle that if it does happen.
Thank you, General. Next question.
Hey, sir, Bob Michael again. Quick one, sort of a two-part. With regards to SOFA established deadlines in the looming June 1st, is Baghdad International Airport in Baghdad? Part two, I've heard General Odierno's comments on this topic, but do you foresee any problems for your AO with achieving that June 1st deadline?
The deadline, as I understand, is June 30th, and out of the cities is a topic that's being negotiated right now in the central government with General Odierno's staff. The Iraqis are engaging us right now on what exactly that means and what forces that entails. And I don't want to get ahead of the negotiations, but in my area, I firmly expect that there will be some limitations on our activities, but we have stopped doing unilateral operations almost 8 months ago, and every operation we conduct, with the exception of logistics convoy, is done with the Iraqis. And so there will be very little change the way we currently operate. I think the out of the cities mandate is probably going to affect Baghdad and Mosul much greater than it will southern Iraq, where we have got a very low presence in the towns right now. We just came to Basra this last month. We're still assessing what that means with the local population, and quite frankly, I don't believe that there'll be any impediments to our continued training of the Iraqi security forces. It is something we need to be sensitive to. I'm not entirely convinced that the Iraqi population fully understands that their government has asked us to remain and to continue to train their forces. So on June 30th, when they see U.S. forces still driving around Iraq, there will be some percentage of the Iraqis who are confused by all that. And we have got a campaign plan to try and help them understand what that's all about. So it is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I don't think a major one.
Okay, thank you. Next.
General Tommy Sears, Center for Military Readiness. We're a nonprofit inside of Washington, D.C. Curious to hear that you, first of all, I have to confess I wasn't aware of your blog, so I can promise you that will be something that I'll be checking out forthwith. But I was curious to hear that you had raised the topic of don't ask, don't tell with your troops, and just from the perspective, of course, me not having seen it, I don't know what context you brought it to them in, but in that, from that, with that, knowing that you did, what would you say reflects their attitude in general?
Hey, Tommy, what I did was essentially put a question out there that it's been an open source that the administration might be considering a modification to the existing policy, and asked the soldiers what they thought about it. It's easier to get their opinions up front before a decision is made, because at that point, once it becomes national policy, of course we're going to abide by whatever comes out. I would say after reviewing the comments, the majority were in favor of modifying the policy. But I don't know that that reflects a wide percentage of the Army. It just reflects a wide percentage of those who responded to the question on my site. I think there's some generational attitudes involved there. I find that as soldiers become older, seek leadership roles, their rules, their view on rules changes, just as it does when you become a parent. Your view of rules changes from when you were 19. I think some of that factors into it. But I was just interested in seeing what their thoughts were about the subject. And if I just take the responses, I'd say the majority of them reflected that a change in policy would not upset them terribly.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to the next question, the gentleman, you're the last one. You're the last caller. Okay, go ahead. Next question.
General C.J. Grisham from a soldier's perspective. I'm also an active duty blogger, Army First Sergeant, stationed at Redstone Arsenal. My question is actually to get a little bit of advice from you. As bloggers, we all write for varied reasons. We write from either a family standpoint, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine standpoint. However, we all have a common theme, and that is that we want to see success and support for our troops. What advice do you have for us that we can help to ensure, or at least assist, in the goal of victory and supporting our troops?
First Sergeant, I got to tell you, I'm a big fan of First Sergeants. If you'll just allow me an unadvertised comment, nothing good happens in the Army or probably any other service unless you got First Sergeants doing their work. As you know, there's no order or policy that a general or an admiral can issue that's going to make a difference at all without the First Sergeants enforcing it and leading by example. So thanks for what you're doing there. I will tell you that the number one thing that is important on a blog from my perspective is candor. I find that if I'm willing to be candid in my remarks, that it generates candid response. And although the Army doesn't do everything right the first time, every time, I've been in the Army 30 years, and I'm willing to take the percentages that the Army is going to be right the vast majority of times. And people, when they see a candid response and understand the information and rationale, are supportive of the Army. I remind my leaders all the time that they lead American soldiers, not just soldiers, but Americans. And Americans have a tremendous desire, probably instilled at birth, to ask the question, why? And they don't like the answer, because I told you so. So if you're willing to take the time to explain and be candid, I think the response from most young soldiers is positive, and that whether they agree with you or not, they are willing to be supportive. That's been my experience, and I don't need to spin them. I don't need to tell them stories. I just tell them the truth. And if I don't know the answer, I tell them that. And I find that that generates all the support we need for our Army and the Armed Forces. There's no mistaking that we are the most respected institution in the United States. And that didn't happen by accident. So we have a lot going on, as you would say. And we'll take the good with the bad, because the vast majority is going to be good. And I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, General. I have one last question, and we'll be out of time. Go ahead.
Hey, sir. This is Major Bill Jacola from Tradox Public Affairs. I just wanted to know what your overall strategy was, your blog strategy, and also wanted to know, do you ask your staff or your subordinate commanders to blog as well?
Let me answer the last one first. I've not asked anybody else to blog, although I have sent notes to my commanders, the brigade commanders and battalion commanders, to take a look at the responses, because I think there's some golden gems in there. For example, I put a question out about sexual assaults and why we're experiencing so many sexual assaults in the Army, in particular overseas. And the responses held some great techniques for us to take a look at as leaders. So I did ask them to go take a look at that